Northern Illinois parts of my swing. Of course, we've been on break or recess or district work period, whatever you want to define it to be, since over the Easter holiday. So this allows me to get to my big district. My district is 33 counties, so it stretches from Danville down to here, and the Indiana-Illinois line all the way to the St. Louis metropolitan area. So it's a large district, which means I've got to efficiently try to travel. So today I started at Carterville, and then from Carterville down pretty much to here. I went to Brookport and met with a whole host of people on some of the pressing issues. Brookport, of course, they're just finishing up their tornado cleanup, and I guess the story about that is they got a lot of help from municipalities like Metropolis and others to help them in that cleanup effort, and they're very appreciative of that. They also have a levee issue that I've been trying to work on for years. It still is unresolved. It is still a challenge for that community, and what we tried to do today was bring the stakeholders, who are the stakeholders, obviously the mayor, or Mayor Pro Tempore right now, and the mayor of Metropolis was there, but IDOT was there, Illinois Emergency Management was there, Corps of Engineers was there, National Guard. So trying to bring people and say, okay, what can we do? What's out there, and how can we help? So I think it was a good meeting. Did it resolve anything? Did we find the magic formula? The answer is no. But I do think we've got some opportunity to work and move forward on that. From there, I came back, toured a business on the river, River Meadows Recycling, and pretty fascinating operation. It cuts up old barges and into little pieces to recycle them instantly. So, and it's they got guys climbing all over, just cutting these big pieces of steel off of barges. And I've been involved in that issue, recycling, in Washington, D.C. I chair the recycling caucus, and even on my committee of jurisdiction, I have some of those issues on the recycling portfolio. So that kind of goes, hand in glove with what I do in Washington. And then finally here to get a visit with you and answer any of your questions that you have about the thousands of things that continue to go around in our country. And it's, I think, for most people in Southern Illinois and the Midwest, we're glad that spring is here. And this long winter is now seemed, I said this about 2 weeks ago, and then we got snow again. So I think now we can say that spring is here, and we're getting prepared for summer. So what questions do you have?
Well, why is it important for you to come down here and meet with us about this levy? Well, as you know, there was a reason. Anytime there's high water, if you don't have a levee that is up to standards, you risk flooding out the people who live in the community. This is an age-old problem that's costs a lot. The community is pretty poor, doesn't have a lot. So we have lost the ability in Washington to earmark things. This would have been in the old days, something that you could put in the appropriation cycle and say, this is what I need, in my district. But now it has to go into the generic Corps of Engineers funding, and they have to make prioritization, and it's based upon other type of formula. But we're not going to give up, because that community needs to have the assurance that their levy is there to protect them. And now it's held, but it's held through a lot of extra effort that you wish you wouldn't have to put in, like you bring in emergency generators with emergency pumps, and then you're pumping out water as fast as it's coming in. I've been through those cycles, and they're long and arduous, and you'd rather not have to do that again.
Just how bad is the levee? I mean, can you give specifics in terms of
yes.
recent damage?
It's not. It's no secret. It's not like something. This is well known by the community leaders. It's really a corrugated pipe that's its lifetime existence, based upon how old the pipe is just rendered useless. So it's collapsing in on itself to a point where it's not functioning, and could then, based upon water coming in, could then start eroding, doing major erosions of the levee. So it's but it's a very costly proposal to remove, replace, then obviously put dirt again. And you'd have to talk to engineers, but again, this is no secret. The local leaders have known this for a long time.
So, I mean, do you have a dollar figure, or in terms of?
Well, we talked a lot of different dollar figures, but we're in the millions. $1.5 million, I think, was maybe just for that. We'll check on those numbers for you. A whole levee repair and upgrade might be $12.5 million, because it's you're talking about maintenance of the levees, taking out the trees. It's 3.5 miles long, and so there's to really be good stewards. You got to have you have the maintenance. You got to have the correction of that. There's some lift gate issues, pumping stations, and then you have some low-lying areas within Brookport that you may want to consider at some time, deciding that maybe they should be in essence kind of a buyout program, because those are the areas that get hit first, even in good times sometimes.
Is the levee in good standing with the Corps?
No, it's not. No.
Is it eligible for Corps funding?
No, it's not. Not because of these lapses in local maintenance. This levee is like a lot of levees. Is that they're built decades ago, right? And so a lot of them went last. I mean, again, Brookport's a poor community that couldn't, even with the money that they had, couldn't maintain it. And who's to say historically maybe they let it lapse for a while. Now the repair to get it up to standard is way outstrips anything that they can do.
So in terms of today's meeting, and I think you had said that there's really no resolution in terms of what to do. What does the community do at this point?
Well,
There's no money for it, and
well, I think what we did identify is they really need help having a point of contact. I mean, I think when you talk to the Corps, there's a couple of avenues for maybe some grants to be of assistance. There may be stuff through mapping through IDNR, which is the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. A lot of people offered different opportunities for maybe some way they could be helpful. But if you don't have a central focus, I mean, I would say if there's no leader, it's hard for things to get done. So who can lead that project? The city's not even is so poor it can't hire someone. So, or if they can hire someone, do they have the skills to be like a city manager who's dealing with grants and contracts and the like? So I think if there's one thing that some of us walked away with is, how do we get someone there who can help lead this project and start evaluating all these options, how we can be helpful through the coalition that was there. It was well attended by representatives from the state of Illinois and from the federal government.
But how many years do you think it's past its prime? I mean, I'm sure every levee has a...
I mean, geez, you're asking me. I'm just the politician, so I'm not the engineer and not the Corps. But I would safely say 20. It's probably been, negligently treated.
Do you have a certain time frame when you guys would like to see something done?
I'd like to see it done yesterday. So this is a big dollar project, so the sooner the better. But I can't predict that anything's going to get done relatively soon. I mean, again, in the old days when you could earmark, I could say to the vendors in Washington, me included, this is so important of a project that I need help, federal dollars, taxpayers' dollars. That was what we would call earmark. Now, earmarks got abused in the old days too. So the question is, how do we reform that process so that we can direct federal dollars to those projects that really need the federal involvement? And I would say this does, to a local government entity, make sure it's fully transparent, versus earmarks that might have gone through private enterprises. I think those days are over, and I think there was some abuse of that. But this, I think, would pass any scrutiny.
What first steps would you like to see done, immediately?
I'd like to see someone come up with money that could fix that. I mean, you're asking questions. They're great questions. I don't have an answer. I mean, if I had an answer, I would have done it 10 years ago. What we wanted to do today was get we were hoping to get, when we were getting people together, they realize the gravity of the situation. The Corps knows. They know. Illinois Emergency Management, they know the gravity of the situation. But, for example, does IDNR know that? Does the Illinois Work Camp in Dixon Springs? How about the Job Corps in Golconda? Can they bring some resources to bear to help the local community raise some issues on some use of federal equipment stuff that we might be able to help? There's some things we might be able to do, but this is again, if I could have solved it, I would have solved it, tried to solve it 10 years ago. I just feel bad that it's taken so long.
Well, what is your level of optimism? I mean, given that this isn't the only levy that has problems, Jackson County levy system,
Right.
They're facing multiple millions of dollars to repair a pipe that did collapse, as well as other
Right.
damage on their levees. And the Alton area just received, or at least a letter from Senator Durbin and other legislators urging the Corps to make corrections a priority in that area as well. A lot of competition for those dollars,
Right.
and tension. Well, what is your level of optimism?
Well, I know the Metro East area because that's obviously where I live and been involved with that. The project in Alton is actually that's the federal portion of that levy where the local taxpayers went on a referendum to help repair the rest of that shared levy system. We had a rep from Jackson County was at this meeting, and she told a story about a referendum passed years ago where there's money somewhere, which was good because I asked the question, well, compared to Brookport, how does Grand Tower financially compare to Brookport? And I don't know this. She said, well, I think Grand Tower's even poorer than Brookport. If that's the case, I think that's a good signal to even Brookport that maybe they ought to look at some way to maybe raise their ability to carry some of this burden financially. And I know that's what Grand Tower's trying to address, is how can they start carrying some. Now, when you're talking about raising tens of thousands of dollars versus the millions that have to be spent, you can see that's a big hurdle. All I know is that I've been amazed that sometimes in the history of my public policy involvement is that when you get people in the room with, they've got their fingers on different options of what they do, sometimes you can find ways to take some granting authority and then use that for another granting authority to bring money or bring assistance through, volunteerism and stuff like that. So, again, nothing was resolved, big meeting, a lot of people, and my hope is that they walk away saying, now let's think on this and then we eventually find a point of contact where the point of contact can keep these discussions going among the different parties.
Who called the meeting? Who organized it?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
What was your thoughts on seeing Brookport and kind of the status of the recovery effort there?
Well, again, they're pretty much in essence done. Again, the mayor pro tempore, the temporary mayor, I don't think enough can be said about the local community support from right here, the city of Metropolis, Massac County, local communities, and helping that community with equipment, time, personnel to enact as recovery. I mean, you remember a lot of tornadoes hit in that stretch, but only one had loss of lives, and that was here. Obviously very devastating, but I think Brookport's moving on, and I think their recovery, for the most part, they will say is over.
Do you see other options rather than fixing the levee, like any buyout programs or?
Yeah, that's good. That's a good question because I kind of raised that, and because I have other communities, one that's not on a levee that
we're getting some buyout. I think Metropolis has some buyouts of a few properties from the last flood. So what the Corps guy there talked about is really on FEMA and flood insurance. They're all kind of related, right? Because elevation, how do you purchase flood insurance, the levees protect. So it really takes three. You really have to do an investigation about how strong and safe is a levee, what are the ways you can mitigate it, which